The Church of St. Lawrence at Lucina is a Roman Catholic parish, titular church, and minor basilica in central Rome, Italy. The church is located in Piazza San Lorenzo in the Rione Colonna, about 2 blocks behind the Palazzo Montecitorio, just off the Via del Corso. History. The church is dedicated to St. Lawrence, Roman deacon and martyr. The name Lucina comes from the 4th century Roman matron who gave permission for Christians to build a house of worship. Putatively Pope Marcellus I hid here during persecutions of Maxentius, while Pope Damasus I was elected here in 366. A church here was consecrated by Pope Sixtus III in the year 440 AD. The church was known as Titulus Lucinae, and thus is mentioned in the Acts of the 499 Synod of Pope Symmachus. It was first reconstructed under Pope Paschal II in the first decades of the 12th century. In 1606, Pope Paul V placed the church under the order of clerics regula minor. The interior was completely transformed by Cosimo Fanzago in the 17th century, converting the lateral aisles of the basilica structure into chapels. The ceiling then was frescoed by the Neapolitan Momato Greuter. In the 19th century, a further restoration of the interior commissioned by Pope Pius I removed the Baroque decorations in the nave and replaced them with frescoes by Roberto Bompiani. The current cardinal priest of the Titulus S. Laurenti in Lucina, established in 684, is Malcolm Ranjit Pattabendijadon, Archbishop of Colombo, Sri Lanka, who was appointed on November 20, 2010. Art and architecture. In the rebuilding of 1650, the old basilical plan was destroyed and the side naves were replaced by Baroque chapels, which were then leased to noble families to decorate and to use as mausolea. This was done by inserting walls behind the arcade piers. The arcades themselves have solid square piers with imposts. The flat ceiling is coffered in squares, gilded and decorated with rosettes, and has a painting of the apotheosis of St. Lawrence, Indiana, the central panel. This ceiling was made in 1857, under Pope Pius IX. Guido Reni's Christ on the Cross can be seen above the high altar, framed by 6 Corinthian columns of black marble. Below the altar is a reliquary in which is preserved the gridiron on which St. Lawrence was allegedly martyred. The marble throne of Pope Paschal II, in the apse behind the altar, has an inscription recording the placement here of the relics of Lawrence of Rome. A Madonna and Child with John of Nepomucene and Archangel Michael by Onofrio Avellino hangs in the apse behind the high altar. The Cappella Fonseca, fourth on the right, was designed by Gian Lorenzo Bernini for the Portuguese Gabriel Fonseca, who was Pope Innocent X's physician. The chapel has some fine busts by Bernini and his workshop, including a portrait of Fonseca to the left of the altar. This chapel also contains a painting by Giacinto Gimignani entitled Elisha pouring salt into the bitter fountain that dates to 1664. The French artist Nicolas Poussin is buried in the second chapel on the right-hand side, and is commemorated with a monument donated by the French ambassador François-René de Chateaubriand in 1830. The second chapel on the left has an altarpiece by Carlo Saraceni. The fifth chapel on the left was designed and decorated by Simon Vouet. His 2 paintings depict Francis of Assisi. One shows him receiving his religious habit, the other his temptations. The altarpiece shows St. Francis appearing to Jacinta Marescotti on her deathbed by Marco Benefil. The baptistry to the left of the entrance was designed in the 17th century by Giuseppe Sardi. In the church is also the tomb of the composer Bernardo Pasquini. 3 years after the composer's death was placed there his portrait sculpted in Carrara marble by Pietro Francesco Papolio. The portrait was a commission by the composer's nephew Felice Bernardo Ricordati and his pupil Bernardo Gaffi. Charles Stuart, an officer in the papal army who died in 1864, is buried within the church. He was the son of John Stuart, Prince Charles Edward Stuart's Maestro di Casa. Charles had created John a baronet in 1784. Burials: Pompeo Bertoni, Joseph Myslivchek, Bernardo Pasquini, Nicholas Poussin, Charles Stuart, Francesco Gonzaga, Filippo Calandrini.